the most exciting parts of a painting is definitely when like the paint starts to move itself and something fun happens, and that's to do with the abstract use of paint for sure. I make still lifes and portraits that are objects resting in domestic settings that symbolize times in my life, almost like diary entries. And there's different symbols that keep repeating over and over again, and they represent certain rituals or ideas about creativity or ideas about friendship, loss, being a woman, just anything really that's going on for me and that I'm thinking about. I always start by writing and then I draw, so that's one of my like planned drawings. So I'll like plan the composition from the writing, which will be writing, and then I'll discover what I'm trying to say out of the painting. Then I go through my whole camera roll for like 10 years of photos. Themes like come up again and again, and then I use those photos, draw them in the composition, and then I will make these colour palette studies. So these are, I call them anemone studies, and I think I've made about 45 now over the last 5 years, and they are my colour palette studies for final paintings. So I painted this pot of anemones about 5 or 6 years ago, and I've just been painting each one from the last, and they're a way of kind of working out how colour interacts, and then I take these and I use those for bigger paintings. So these are kind of my first studies, but they also become quite nice little objects in themselves. You can kind of see there, like that's my compositional study, that's my colour palette, and that's how I'm combining it. I'm always using flowers as a way of representing moments in time, and that is often a pot of flowers that's like actually been there in that moment or means something to me. I'll draw pots of flowers when they mean something specific, or I'll construct fake pots of flowers that kind of give a sense of something. And then there's often a phone reoccurring that is talking about our visual relationship with the world as artists, and like how much of the world we now view through a screen and that whole conversation. But it's also talking about the threat of the world at large at the moment and how we are all dealing with that and how that impacts creativity. Often in a painting I'll be exploring different ways of using paint in different areas, and like what I was just saying about Lucian Freud and how he uses paint as a kind of substitute for flesh and how waxy it is and how solid it is. I think that's the dream. But I also find it really exciting when paint has like dusty layers. So certainly in some of these paintings, I'm trying to like build up thickness and look at how the colour interacts when you like pull it next to itself. Then in other ones where I'm like telling more of a story, I kind of plan sections where there's like much more like a dusty flowing area, and I hope that the contrast between those two like makes something exciting in the painting. I think the panel came from my grandma, who was a painter. Her paintings from when she was really young and at the Slade in the 60s are all on panel, and that's kind of what I was just emulating when I started. I love that you're making an object and then that object is flat and matte and contained and you can hold it. Because the still lives are ways of kind of concluding time, for myself. So I'm kind of thinking about my own life and painting them as a reaction to it. I think the themes are often themes that are going on for me. So there's a lot about being a woman. There's a lot of ritualism as a way of concluding time. There's often the kitchen table, like the still lives in my head are set at the kitchen table. And I love the idea of still life being a small slice of time where you're looking at a scene and then you can like pull all of these different symbols out of it. One of my paintings is about certain like mealtime ritual that me and my friends do, where I make a pie on the 1st of October and we all sit around and we eat the pie, and there's something like written on top of the pie that is like a sort of affirmation for the year ahead, and then we like burn things to let go of the year behind. There's this sleeping rock woman that to me represents self-protection but also like contentedness and togetherness with yourself. When I put that in, that's what I'm sort of saying in that bit of the painting. And I just have all these symbols which I keep like putting in, and they mean different things to me. I also am interested in telling a narrative story through my paintings. It can't all be abstract, and there are parts that kind of become tighter and more planned. The artist that I'm inspired by, and certainly the artist that I kind of moved into painting because of, is Celia Paul, and she's not a still life painter, she's a portrait painter. I read her book, Self-Portrait. She said something about just like turning up and painting all the good stuff and all the bad stuff, and I think it really changed something for me. And there are certain paintings that I've like turned up and painted the bad stuff, and I think they're horrible, and I like don't show anyone, but it doesn't matter. And I think that's why so much of the symbolism in my work I do try and keep slightly opaque, and people can read whatever they like out of it. There's a set of lithographs by Henry Moore. He draws sheep with the like lines going over and over, but he's doing those to rocks. And I just return to those lithographs like over and over and over again. There's the Paula Modersohn-Becker painting of, it's like her with a child, and she's absolutely massive and she looks like a rock. And I return to that. And also Kathy Kollwitz. There's a drawing of her with a dead child, and there's something just so incredible about the mark making, so I return to that one. Apart from Celia Paul and just her attitude towards work and like her emotional attitude towards painting, I'd say she's my inspiration. But when it comes to being inspired for paintings, I would say it's my own daily imagery, and then these like few just like quite obsessive pieces of art that I like return to over and over. I think bigger is better. I'm moving up in scale, and I want things to be bigger. I want the figures to sort of be quite like colossal and monumental and be bigger than humans.